Hello. Your activity under the previous video inspired me to do this. I'd like to recap Xelor's problems with the new one. 77 patch, which most likely coming in September. So, patch 1.77 will bring changes to hand and hammer. Hammer will be more limited and hand will cost 4 AP and deal less damage. However, game designer Sue said they want to make deeper and more positive changes for Xelor. And this means that we can expect Xelor improvement or rework, but not in the 1.77 patch. Be ready to take part and remember that there are many people around who hate Xelor and will be ready to prevent us from getting these positive improvements. Unfortunately, these people are even among Xelor players. Damage passives. Talk Tick, Deja Vu, Violent Omens plus counterclockwise, which is associated with the identity element current hour, dial, plus portent and knowledge of the past, which are related to range, in one case setting the visibility to close range, in the other extending the visibility to +2 range. The role of the prevention movement passives. Xelor reduce others' abilities to act. They have specific spells to prevent their opponents from playing their turns fully. It is removing AP. Tick-Tock, Combat Mage, directly interact with this role, in one case turning the gameplay of moves into a cycle, in the other, Combat Mage, giving more survivability in exchange for taking action points in melee, plus Dark Dimension, which is associated with the identity element current hour, dial, and shriveling, transforms ranged AP removals into delayed damage. Problem. This playstyle is weak. It already requires you to have at least 3 passives in law to improve willpower, Dark Dimension, Tick-Tock and Shriveling, which is half of active passives in combat. Even though we have much more ability to remove action points, the poison is still weak enough for players to massively turn to this playstyle. Positioning passives and identity. Slowdown of time, refer to identity passive, directly affects dial, and dial master passive, refer to identity passive, directly affects dial and current hour. Momentary permutation, affects the dial and its positioning, plus clockmaking passive, refer to identity, and buff damage, teleport to current hour, which allow use it to positioning, as well as to create a telefrag effect. Problem. Xelor has few passives that improve object positioning gameplay. All we have is the ability to influence the dial, as well as create a telefrag using clockmaking passive. Possible solution. Improve momentary permutation passive or add a new passive that would improve the gameplay with creating a telefrag in combat OR. Improve passive course of time, which associated with the role of positioning and the role prevention movement, removing AP. Course of time can associated with telefrag gameplay. Xelor devices passives. Remnants, improves the amount of summons, and specialized mechanisms add special effects to summons death. If Cog death it is damage, if Sinistro death it is buff, debuff AP, and if Dial death it is give +1 Wakfu point. I just wanted to show that it is important to deal damage here so that the summons die to activate the effects of the passive. Problem. Cog is quite abusing in PvP due to delayed damage and is not used anywhere outside of PvP. Sinistro gives action points to enemies, although all other classes in the game that give action points do not give them to enemies, for example. Other passives associated with next Xelor identity. Memory, more Wakfu points so you can more use Wakfu points freely or Wakfu points to AP converting longer, and Assimilation allowing you to recover Wakfu points on kill. Problem. The Assimilate passive has a large penalty and it shifts Xelor's gameplay to damage only. Possible solution. What if Assimilation allows you to restore Wakfu points from removing action points or from making telefrags in combat? And the last 20 passive in my tables is Timeliness. Dunno which section to put this passive in, given that it just improves mobility and by giving 2 movement points, It allows you to make other passives penalties on movement points not so hard. Elemental spells. Fire is related to damage, especially considering distortion. It also has a unique spell that allows you to bypass the restriction if you play at close range, dust, and hand with AP recovery if you kill. Playing with hand and sublimation return AP allows you to return 7 AP for a cost of 5 AP. And as we know, AP is related to a new mechanic in the Xelor identity, namely the transformation of unused AP to Wakfu points. That's why this spell is so valuable. Problem: Dark Bolt looks unique, but limited. Disruption doesn't shine against its fiery spells, although I have more complaints about Dark Bolt. Water. Here are strong spells with delayed damage. S-Lock plus Sandglass. Here are the removal of action points and additional abilities, buff AP through desynchronization. Problem: If you want buff AP through desynchronization, you can't play prevention movement, removing AP roll. This contradiction is weird. Air. Positions. Gives mobility. Allows you to make a telefrag. There is a unique spell with self, stab until end of turn, suspension. Problem: Telefrag is not supported by gameplay and underhand very limited, as is the requirement of the paradox to always have a central object through which the change in the position of objects will be carried out. Active spells. Active spells are a mix of different tools that interact with Xelor's roles. Sinistro, Cog as Xelor devices. Gear related to positioning, Conduing Telefrag and is related to Xelor devices. Against the Clock, Conduing Telefrag and relator to positioning. Problem: Gear 1 per turn. It attempt to sit on 2 chairs made the instrument very limited. Same problem with Premonition, trying to sit on 2 chairs at the same time. Premonition, self-support and support tool, and can protect from removal AP movement points. If protect successful, this gives Xelor 2 Wakfu point. Problem: Armor buff. It is not about Xelor. Before revamp it was unique revive. Protect from revoaming AP movement points limited by using Premonition only 1 per turn, 3 turn cooldown. When Feca can use drip 3 times per turn, 3 turn cooldown, to return AP movement points that were taken from allies. And last active spell is Devotion. Can used in support and for Xelor to speed up, do more actions in the current turn for an additional cost of 1 WP, and extracted AP in this way can also be transformed into Wakfu points. Conclusions. I think there is an element of thoughtful participation on the part of the developers in this revamp. Despite some points, most of the structured information looks harmonious. We have a passive that gives movement points and makes the movement points penalties for other passives not so hard, or for example, we have identity affecting passives, dial, current hour. We have passives that take into account the distance at which the AP is revoaming, etc. However, I argue that there are not enough passives, at least one, that would improve the positioning of objects directly. There is nothing in the passives that rewards Telefrag with gameplay. The poison is too weak and requires large investments in willpower on the part of sublimations, given that we need to take 3 passives for influencing willpower. Positioning tools are limited. Underhand, gear. Premonition still doesn't shine. However, positive improvements are possible without the new revamp. I believe that after the positive changes in 1.73 patch, and with a closer look at this class, one can see a good enough basis for positive changes in other playstyles, not just in damage. Damage is okay. And nerfing damage also will require changes, because many elements of Xelor are aimed at the need to kill the object, and not just deal damage. Hope developers will solve problems in Xelor class, given that they have an interest in doing so, and for players don't need to write many words to say, our class is not okay. Although I again doing a lot of words, but maybe that with a visual representation of the information it is much easier to understand my position. Thank you.